Hi, I'm Rick Dior. What you heard there was page 44 from Steve Houghton's The Drumset Soloist. So once again, this book is just a collection of tunes, of figures. So there's trading fours in the beginning, then eights in the jazz section. Then later on, there's tunes like this, where you have band vamps or band ensembles, and the drummer plays and solos over those. So this one is in the fusion swing style, kind of like later Yellow Jackets, anything after the record Four Corners. Each of those records had one of these tunes on there that swung, but they were more electric. Weather Report did some stuff like this, as well as the band Steps Ahead did lots of stuff like this. So these are heavier kind of fusion tunes. The drums are normally tuned a little lower than if you're playing bebop, and the drumming is a little more choppy, a little heavier. Great drummers to listen to in this style. Steve Smith's one. Peter Erskine plays this stuff great. Steve Gadd, of course. Dave Weckl. Horatio Hernandez does it amazing in the Latin style. Obviously, Vinnie Colaiuta. And the list goes on. Dennis Chambers is another one. So those drummers are great. They're great soloists, and they really have a large vocabulary. So I would suggest, if you're into this kind of thing, to study them. But today we're just going to talk about the mechanics of a solo like this. Now, this is one of the more difficult kind of solos to play because, number one, it's really fast, and number two, it's got lots and lots of figures that go by really quickly. So there's not a lot of time to reset. These figures just happen very, very fast. And there's only a few measures in the tune where you can actually stretch out. There's no open section. The next video that you'll see is kind of the same kind of solo, but there's a few open spots where you can really play a solo without accompaniment. But in this one, no such thing. So it starts out with this 8-bar vamp that happens 4 times. And what you do is you want to build that up. And you're still playing time during that. And as you saw in the demonstration I did, I'm playing just kind of a fast bebop thing there, but not 4 on the floor with the bass drum, because there's no walking bass. So I'm doing some interspersed things with my hi-hat and my snare drum like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So you keep building it up until you get to the bar before it says last time there, and then you're into the main tune. And you need to keep that energy going to the end. Now, one thing you can do towards the end is go into more of a groove thing. You saw in that demo that I did earlier, I went into kind of a samba thing. So. And anytime you do that kind of thing, it just creates more sound. It creates more excitement. So that's something you might want to go towards when you do that. And the sky's the limit. Don't let anybody tell you what you can do or what you can't do. It's your solo. Enjoy it. All right? So today we're just going to talk about how to play some of this kind of technical stuff because, once again, it's very, very difficult to do. Now, like most things, I do use my own book for playing these things and learning these things. But any book with rhythms will work for this. So if you go to pages 7 and or 8 in my book, that works just fine. So what you want to do is you want to put your metronome on, the 280. I'll go a little slower here. So you want to put it on 2 and 4, 2, if you're playing jazz, okay? Later on, if you're going for a more fusion style, you could put it on a half note at like 140. And what I do on page 7 is the first way is I'll play everything with the bass drum and the cymbal, and I'll catch the figures with my snare drum like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the first 3 lines of page 7. And what that does, it trains you to react to those figures quickly. So that's alternating on the snare drum and playing between the cymbals there. Now, you can also just play on one cymbal, which would be the rod in this case, with your right hand. This is much more difficult. If you go to page 8, I'll play you a little of that. So what you're going to do slowly is you're going to fill in with your left hand like this. Now that's a slower tempo, obviously, and you want to practice all these things slower. Things like the third line get pretty hairy as far as the minimum amount of space. So let me play that for you up to tempo. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you get to the fourth line, as you saw what I did there, you can come over anything more than 2 notes and play it with your right hand. But that's a discipline. In other words, I'm forcing myself to play these things a certain way. Of course, the other way is to play alternating, like I did for page 7. So I'll do the first couple lines of page 8 like that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's kind of like a little Tony Williams thing there, you know. This is a valid approach to playing these kinds of things. And of course, it has these rhythms built into it. So once you can do this, the other solos, like the one I just played in the beginning, that kind of solo, becomes relatively simple to catch those figures because this is so difficult. The main thing is to start out slow and to build up the tempo so you can execute cleanly. It's very, very, very physical, all right? So going back to the solo now, there's a few spots we should talk about. One thing is before the first ending, that happens 6 times, but there's some triplets. You should catch those, okay? Be careful that you don't play those as straight eighths. Or you could play kind of a triplet feel into that. Now, all of this will work with the triplet feel, but at this tempo, it doesn't really swing. It's all kind of straight. So in other words, that ride cymbal becomes straight eighths. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So past a certain point, maybe, 210, 220, that rhythm on the ride cymbal is not swinging. It's more straight eighths than anything. So just keep that in mind. That's what happens with this tune. So once again, try to build excitement by being more notey, but also by using different kinds of things. So in other words, you can get away from those figures and just play some more toms on there and use heavier cymbals like you see I'm using this Chinese cymbal here. It's got a great sound for that. It's very, very powerful. And towards the end there, you saw me using that on the demo. All right? So that'll do it for this installment. We have one more installment left where I'm going to play a pretty cool Steve Smith tune that goes way back to the 80s. And that's also pretty notey and very, very syncopated. That's a real challenge. So thanks, and we'll see you soon.